Tony Klassen is a craftsman in the classic sense. His attention to detail is reflected in the visual and sonic beauty of the instruments he creates. Inspired by vintage guitars from the 1930s, he's carved a niche for himself by catering to collectors and players alike.
I bought my first vintage guitar when I was 19 years old. That was when I started to learn how to play. It was nice to have a cool guitar to learn how to play on, and I think that's what really drew me to the vintage thing. My background is graphic design, that's what I went to college for, but I dabbled in learning how to repair guitars while I was a graphic designer. Had a shop here at my house. I wasn't afraid to just jump in and start, tearing my guitar apart. I couldn't afford to take it to somebody to get repaired. And then finding a repairman back in '79 was kind of a tough thing to do. I do vintage reproductions. My favorite years are 1930 to like 1934. Those were what they call the golden years in guitar making. And I've sought out the odd ones. So these are guitars that in the vintage market, there's maybe only a handful that exist. Some of them will cost upwards of $40,000 or more. If you've got a $40,000 guitar, you don't want to take it to a gig. Also, they can be a little finicky. Different temperature changes and things, they might cause some problems. And a lot of vintage collectors just buy these vintage guitars just to keep. They don't even play them. So I know some customers of mine who have a really nice vintage will have me make a reproduction. That's the guitar that they want to bang on. There's all kinds of players. I mean, I've got a few professional players, a lot of collectors, but there's a very broad range. Because they are, I think, copies of vintage guitars, a lot of guys always wanted that vintage guitar but can't afford it. They'll pick up one of mine. It's kind of a niche that I have because there's not a lot of luthiers out there that have the vintage experience that I have, and then I've combined it with making them, and I've got a market for that. One thing about making a vintage guitar is you can't add 70 years to it. No, you can't do that. But I can study them inside and out, and I do all the bracing the same way. I try to make the thicknesses of the sides and the tops the same way. The same neck shapes, so at least you're getting the feel. Making a guitar is kind of bringing art and science together. It has to look good for one thing, but then it also has to stand up to 180 pounds of pressure once you tune the strings up. So there's a delicate balance there, and I think making the perfect sounding guitar is finding that spot. A lot of times I hear, it's the best sounding guitar, or the intonation up and down the neck's the best. Fit and finish, the guitar looks good and plays very well, and that's all things you want to hear. It's really nice to hear something back from a customer when he gets his guitar and he tells you, it's the best sounding thing he's ever played. So it makes it worth all the time you put into the guitar. The guitar that's going to roll out of the shop here next is a reproduction of a Larson Brothers Prairie State Super Jumbo. It's 18 inches wide, which is very unusual size for a guitar, but not unusual for the Larson Brothers. They even made larger guitars than that. And it's cocobolo, back and sides with a cedar top. And I'm pretty excited because it's the first time I've used cedar on a steel string guitar. I've been self-employed for 23 years, so I've been working alone. And I think the guitar making thing working alone doing the guitar thing. For one thing, I have control over everything. I mean, I've thought about bringing in an apprentice, but then the guitar doesn't come out of this shop being built just by me. So being alone also helps me just focus, and I just kind of like be one with the guitar. It gives me a lot of freedom. I don't work 9 to 5. I do work 7 days a week in here most of the time. But you know, I may put in an 8-hour day, I may put in a 4-hour day. It's a total freedom. And if you can like feel that way, I think it translates to the guitar and has a lot to do with why the guitar sounds like it does. Oh, the satisfaction is tremendous, being your own boss and having your own freedom. This is my dream job.